Thank you everybody so much for joining today. Thank you for taking your time, really appreciate it. So we're gonna have a good day today and I'm gonna tell you why, because guess what today is? It's Friday, the best day ever. Reason number two, we're already in the second half of the day. So after this webinar, we'll be super informed, we'll be super excited, and we can happily enjoy our weekend knowing we gained some more knowledge about LightleapAI. And then thirdly, we're gonna have fun. We're all big family at the end. We're gonna learn some cool stuff together. We're gonna talk about together, and at the end of the day, we're gonna transform higher education together with the power of LightleapAI. So without further ado, let's get started. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Rohan Polkom. I'm the solutions engineer here at End-to-End Services. I've been a part of End-to-End Services for a little over 2.5 years, and I help along with the marketing and sales activities to promote LightleapAI and help institutions transform higher education so they can make their students successful, their campus successful, and overall be better and do better against fraud and fraud detection.
My name is John Braswell. I'm the sales manager here at End-to-End Services. I'm in charge of bringing awareness to LightleapAI, and excited to show you the awareness of fraud and how much of a major issue it is within higher education.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kieran Korditala. I'm founder and CEO of End-to-End. Super excited to be on this because we've been working on AI for the last 6 months, and this is one of the consistent issues that most institutions are struggling with, and we are hoping that you'll love what we're showing here.
So a little bit about us. We have over 250 years of collective experience and over 150 standard adapters and APIs that cover the whole student SIS journey. Additionally, End-to-End has currently over 425 global customers, and End-to-End's APIs process over 3 million transactions per day, representing a robust and reliable infrastructure. Here you can see we have some of our beta partners that are currently helping out with our collaboration with fraud detection, such as Foothill De Anza Community College District, West Valley Mission Community College District, and Ivy Tech Community College. And you may be asking, why did these guys join our beta? Well, the reason these institutions chose End-to-End Slightly product beta is because the same API infrastructure is already embedded for the CVC course Exchange Integration. So we already have from our Illuminate product all the APIs that we can use with LightleapAI to help transform and fight the battle against fraud and fraud detection so the institutions can be safe and not lose any money. So what is fraud? Fraud is essentially when someone tries to steal sensitive information, private information for their personal gain. And it's a major issue, especially today. People and countries from around the world are constantly affected by fraud. According to the data book, actually, people reported losing $10 billion to scams in 2023. That's just 1 billion more than 2022 and the highest ever losses reported to the FTC, even though the number of fraud reports were roughly about the same as last year, which is 2.6 million. Fraudsters and cyber criminals gain personal information when a large company has a data leak. Thousands, if not millions of individuals have their personal information stolen and accessed through the dark web, allowing criminals to apply for financial aid, receive a loan, etc., buy a car, buy a house. And then fraud currently now has made its way into higher education. Higher education is being super affected by it because we don't have the correct preventions or infrastructures in place to fight this battle. And we're just, constantly trying to fight it without any proper structure. So by the time we come to a solution, it'll probably be too late and the institution will be out of money. So just going to show some stats. We are going to briefly go over some companies that have qualified or have been stated as the top 5 breaches. So we have T-Mobile that had 40 million, Anthem that had 79, Equifax that had 147 million, Marriott, which I love staying at, by the way, has 383 million. And then lastly, First American has a total of 885 million. So these aren't small numbers at all. These are very huge numbers and very huge breaches that are occurring. So if you see all these big organizations having these high numbers, just imagine how it will be when the problem escalates within higher education. And we have so many students yearly.
Right. Just to add to this, this is not just a fraud of 885 million. So if you think about Equifax or First American, the reason why First American has 885 million records on their system, but these records include date of birth, social security number, first name, last name, address, or all the addresses that people have resided in, because they are credit processors, they are loan processors, they are mortgage processors. So this information, they collect it and store it, and that information has been stolen. So this is not some people that work at First American. This is 885 million is, twice the population of the United States. So that is how big the problem is. This is bigger than any other problem we have. And is also a sticky problem, is that in that this social security number is not just because First American has closed that hole, that 885 million records are no longer not available. They are now in the dark web. They are available for any hacker or bad actor to get a hold of and use this to do malevolent acts, and that includes fraud. But the key thing that we want to reiterate is that this is very likely my social security number is in that in this database that has been affected, because I used, Equifax processes my credit score every time I try to buy a car or buy a house or apply for a credit card. So I'm pretty sure every one of our social security numbers is impacted and is at risk, and that is why it is such a scary problem, because it's not just going away, it's going to be there probably for the foreseeable future, because once it's stolen, it is always going to be in dark web.
So just like Kieran states just said, the information isn't gone, it's stored in the dark web where anybody can steal it for their personal gain. And currently there's really no efficient method to stop that, because once the database is breached, all the private information can be accessed through the dark web. And we see this especially with students, institutions, and even administrators when they're getting attacked by the scammers and the hackers that are trying to steal money from them. So when it comes to a student perspectives, when the students go and register for courses, they can't register because the class is full due to ghost actors. And what essentially that means is we have like the scammers using all the data they found on the dark web of students, pretending to be those students, enrolling in them and filling up all the classes. So in that way, actual students that deserve the education and want the education cannot, and then that'll suck for them because they'll constantly have to wait till the next turn to be in those classes, which can lead to them maybe moving to a new college altogether or dropping out, or not even graduating on time like they originally predicted. So it's just one ways that students are constantly doing with this, and there's currently no efficient way to stop this, and that's what we're here to talk about today on how to stop this. Additionally, fraud also affects institutions nationwide because their funds are being taken. And due to the funds being taken, they're not having enough resources to find projects or to find ways and strategies to solve this issue. And because the funds are constantly being taken because people are requesting a refund or dropping out of the classes, and by the time they realize, oh, it's a fraud, the money's already gone and it's too late. So that's just from an institution standpoint, how fraud is affecting them and why we need to stop this issue.
Yep.
And then lastly, fraud also affects administrators greatly because administrators struggle to find a solution when a fraud occurs. They want to know when the fraud occurs and where it occurs, so then they can try to isolate and stop it. But because there's no proper structure or infrastructure in place, they have to do everything manually, which can take a while, be a very long and tedious process. And by the time, if they come to a solution at the end, it'll probably be too late and they'll be out of money as well.
So before we jump into the solution, I would like to start another poll here and get the feedback from the people who have joined to see whether this is a problem for you. I know that, Peter, you're running a leading organization with PaymentDoes, which does credit card processing and payment processing, and I know you guys have an issue here. We started a new poll to see if this is a huge problem for you, or this is the first time you're hearing about this, or you heard of this, but this is not a huge problem. And if you feel like kind of trying to add more color to your question, feel free to jump in as well, because I think we want to, as you all start putting your poll answers, the reason why it was brought to our attention is because, end-to-end is a student information system focused company. We are leaders in our ability to integrate with different systems, especially Banner, Kali, Power Campus, and PeopleSoft and Janzabar as well. And we process about 3 million transactions a day using our Eliminate platform. And because of our integration experience, we started building a full AI chatbot, in which we'll show at the end of this presentation. But as we were building it, that's when one of our beta partnering institution has said, this is a huge problem. One in 4 applications that are coming in to a community college is a fraudulent application, and it's impacting, just like Rohan has said, it's impacting our students from getting into the classes they want. It's impacting my census numbers because we are reporting bad numbers. It's impacting our ability to fill up the classes properly. And that's why we diverted all our attention to build out these models. So I want to just hear from you on whether this is a problem that affects every institution, or is this something that only specific to California or some partner institutions or community colleges. So I'll give it 30 more seconds for you to fill in your poll. Feel free to jump in and answer this question. And after that, we'll resume this as well. And while we're also doing that, if you have any questions on what we are talking about with respect to financial fraud or social security fraud or identity fraud, please feel free to drop your question there, and we'll go from there. Cool. I'm going to end the poll here. It looks like 73% of the attendees see this as a huge problem. It's only 1/3 of the people have responded anyway, and a couple of them said this is the first time they heard of it, and one person thinks that this is not a huge problem. Again, it might be a issue that's specifically to community colleges or localized too. That's why I want to hear from it. Rohan and JT, go ahead.
JT will take over.
So there is a massive problem with fraud within higher education. After COVID-19, the number of students enrolled in online learning has skyrocketed, which has initiated $1 billion fraud issue within higher education. State and federal governments pour hundreds of millions of dollars each year into financial aid for higher education. In the California community college system and elsewhere, fraud has become a huge problem at the application, registration, and financial aid stages. Within these stages, this can be admissions fraud to gain access to the institution, FAFSA fraud to gain illicit access to funds intended for students, and registration fraud for purposes of qualifying for fraudulent aid. So without AI, it's very difficult to detect fraud. There are a number of processes that have been deployed. The attempts are often soiled and require a large amount of manual work. This is particularly problematic as fraudsters rapidly adapt their tactics, and colleges and institutions struggle to keep up. Colleges will try to identify fraud through manual processes, through administration checks, registration checks, financial aid checks, and disbursement reviews, which is time cumbersome and leaves colleges and institutions really frustrated. But AI gives rapid capability to identify behaviors and clusters humans likely would not find across large data sets. AI leverages a scoring mechanism to provide intelligence to aid humans when manual review is necessary. When the AI model can continuously adapt, even with fraud changing methodologies to detect these frauds. So some clusters identified may be based on demographics or metadata, such as applications or registrations sharing IP addresses or similar characteristics. Other clusters may leverage intelligence that links multiple accounts using metadata, behavioral characteristics, engineered data fields, and other information used to train the AI model. So in a nutshell, these fraudsters will apply for financial aid through a massive bulk of applications, but yet use the same IP address. So the cluster identification leverages AI to identify that this cluster has used the same IP address, yet has used a different phone number, different email, different address, or other personal identified information to help identify these bulk clusters that go through these applications. So the LightleapAI is implemented in a way that creates continual checks on student account behavior, such as analysis of initial application data, re-review at registration, request for financial aid, and before aid is actually distributed. Then the cycle repeats in subsequent terms. so on and so forth. But on average, legitimate students take twice as many subjects as fraudsters. So as displayed is the age distribution. So displayed are colleges applications by age. The most common applications start around 20 and taper off towards 25, which are real applications. And the most fraudulent applications found came from an average age of 40. This is so because the fraudsters will access that dark web data from existing data breaches through existing actual Social Security numbers. And this is what we found as far as fraudulent activity. But fraudsters prefer picking online class, as you see in the red graph, but legitimate students do a mix of hybrid and online. Fraudsters pick online class as it's easier for them to register and fill up the class, leaving students really frustrated having to get that class for their core curriculum to graduate. So our proactive model uses an API trigger, such as upon receipt of application data or registration transaction, that calls LightleapAI model to analyze and return a fraud score or the likelihood of fraud. And certain local actions, such as holds, can be placed based on the confidence score. The module returns a rationale of why a score will be flagged as a fraudulent to aid human reviewers if required. If just, for example, an institution has integrated the LightLeap API and a fraud score into the fraud dashboard previously created to aid A&R and financial aid teams in evaluating and processing potential fraudulent applications. So the AI model will take that application, run if the student is in good standing or has any holds, and then identify if a application is fraudulent or not based off some decision criteria. And so in identifying fraud, we have leading identifiers for detection, such as age, Social Security number, issuing state, high school state, financial aid reference, intended major, and GPA grade point average. And all these are relative weighting factors to identify if an application is fraudulent or not. So the aim of LightleapAI's AI fraud detection is to detect fraudulent applications before they receive financial aid to provide faculty and staff more time and capital to use their resources for what's most important. And so we detect fraudulent activity through AI admissions, registration, and FAFSA. We detected 74.8% admissions fraud from our AI module, and registration 12.6%. And our FAFSA module, AI module, is only 7.6%, only missing 3.3%, close to 3% of fraudulent activity. So it's very accurate, 3.4%, excuse me. So it's very accurate at detecting fraud, and these are kind of the different factors of what we detect. So we can also detect it through collaboration and sharing. Utilizing LightleapAI and Into an Illuminate platform encourages collaboration with districts with other community colleges. For example, this California community college is sharing information on fraud patterns, bad actors, and blacklist data, such as IP addresses, Social Security numbers, and phone numbers, which enhances detection mechanisms across the California community college system. If successful, a future scaling scenario can create an enhanced network effect, allowing LightleapAI to identify fraud once a single institution detects it, then to detect and identify the same bad actors across other institutions. So this is very beneficial at locating fraud at one institution and that pattern and methodology that the fraudsters have. And then the LightleapAI will blacklist that data, such as an IP address, a Social Security number, or a phone number, to help that other institution identify fraud as well. So our aim is to go live with LightleapAI as a whole in fall of 2024. In our existing beta partners, we moved to production in July of 2024. So at the application.
But go ahead, JT. Sorry, I'll let you finish.
Yep. So the application, registration, and financial aid stages, this can be administration fraud to gain access to the institution, FAFSA fraud to gain illicit access to funds intended for students, and registration fraud for purposes of qualifying for fraudulent aid. So overall, higher education fraud is still an ongoing issue in which students have yet to find a solution. And millions of students around the country who apply for financial aid are unable to receive it. So institutions as a whole operate by one main motto: no money, no mission. And with funds being withdrawn at a rapid rate, institutions will then be at risk to be audited by the Department of Education and also be limited to resources a university truly needs, which leaves millions of students suffer annually while fraudsters get financial aid for personal gain, leaving universities empty-handed. So LightleapAI aims to prevent fraud from occurring by identifying key patterns and indicators through the power of AI, allowing students to receive the aid they truly deserve. So thank you very much. Any
Great.
questions?
So before we jump into the questions and demo, I want to call out a couple of people that have our friends and also existing customer that is kind of leading the way here. And then Rohan, you can start kind of preparing for the demo as well. So a couple of things. We have a unique privilege of having our customer partner, Jory, on the call as well. Jory, I promoted you to a panelist so that you can, if you want to, unmute yourself and kind of talk about your experience so far and where you're with the trajectory. I don't want to put you on the spot, but it's always good to hear from the customer on what we're doing together.
Sure. Thank you, Kieran. Yeah, kind of unscripted here, but we're very excited about the potential for LightleapAI and the fraud detection AI system to, as noted in the presentation, to really help us detect more frauds that that our folks would have a difficult time manually uncovering through these large data sets, but also to find it earlier so we can protect the seats that we have in our online and face-to-face classes for real students. That's been a problem, and so we're just very excited to be one of the beta partners with end-to-end on this. And we are, as Kieran and John said, we're going to production this month, and we'll be evaluating the efficacy and tweaking the model as we go. And what we've observed over time is that the fraudsters change their methods so rapidly that it's hard for humans to really be able to combat that. The fraudsters are using AI, so this gives us our own set of tools to be able to rapidly adapt, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jory. And it's almost an honor and privilege to work with somebody like you and your team. There's been like a lot of collaboration between Foothill Lienza and at all levels, like from all the way from Jory's level and the chancellor's level, because there's a lot of passion around AI. So as Rohan starts spinning up the demo environment, I want to kind of start talking about AI capabilities to your organization, because there's a poll that we kind of put together so that we can hear from you on, you are excited about AI, but what are some of the applications you're thinking about to use for your AI? I started a new poll here. I want to hear from you on what are the big challenges you're looking to solve with AI. Are you looking to make your websites or help desk more like ChatGPT or Gemini or others? Are you looking to make your mobile applications more user-friendly? Are you looking to help students with registration or help advisors with advising, or obviously do more with AI ML? So we would like to hear from you. And also, again, as we start preparing the opening up for a quick demo, I want to hear from any questions you have on how the models work, on how the technology works before we kind of do the demo. So anybody has any questions? If you have any questions, feel free to please drop the question in the Q&A panel on the bottom so that we can kind of jump in and answer those questions. And while we're also doing that, I know we have I said we called out our good friend from Paymentus here, Peter Drew, who leads a payment company called Paymentus, which is going to be our first fully integrated AI payment solution within our LightleapAI. So Peter, I know you're kind of fielding the fraud issues from payments. What are some of the big issues you're seeing from payment and fraudsters trying to steal credit cards and other information?
Well, that's a great question. And, as you mentioned, fraud is everywhere on campus, right? It's not just in the business office, but, we see it a lot on the credit card side, not necessarily in higher ed, because, we do a lot of things to help mitigate that. Things like duplicate payment checks, right? So if there's continuous payments at one institution that look the same, we'll, kind of put a number on that and say, hey, let's check that out. The other thing is we tokenize all of our payments, right? So we do things to kind of help mitigate this. Tokenization is mathematically irreversible. So the benefit to that is if they steal the data, they get nothing, right? And that's the worst case scenario, is if something does happen, there's nothing for them to, do with that data. That's one of the big benefits of tokenization. But again, I think you're right. I mean, fraud is definitely something that people are concerned about. And from a higher ed perspective, your business is not taking credit cards. It's not taking, all these things that you do. Your business is helping students, right? Our business and Kieran's business is helping you take care of all these extra things that you have to do on campus. And, you look at partners like us and expect these kind of technologies, I always say, try to be out in front of everything. Don't be behind it trying to catch up.
Thanks, Peter. And again, Peter comes with wealth of knowledge because he's worked at TouchNet, ACI Worldwide, and now Paymentas. And one of the cool things about Paymentas, and the press release is coming out next week, is that this is going to be our first, AI powered payment solution. So we're going to have it integrated when Rohan is going to show the demo. We will show that as well.
We actually have a couple questions, Kieran. So
Sure.
I'll start off
Go
from
ahead.
the top. So the first attendee is asking, how are we preparing higher education institutions to define the logic and understand the data points against which they can identify and detect fraud? That's question number
Sure.
one.
Yeah, so this is a great question because in a lot of ways, I think the biggest issue with institutions is that they have a wealth of knowledge with student information system itself. They understand how the data works, how understand the data and the data models. I don't think they need to understand how the student information system works. So that part is easy. But the place where institutions need more help is on the AI ML side, on what constitutes features, what constitutes features of importance, what constitutes things like null values and others. So what we do as part of this process is to not only do this work for you in a turnkey white glove fashion, but also work with you to train you, guide you, and engage with you so that you can understand it and kind of become part of the advocates as well. And Jory, if you want to kind of if you don't mind it, if you are willing to kind of like discuss how we have been working very closely with your team, it'll be good for the people to hear firsthand that we're not just coming in and saying, run this model. We're kind of not only building the model, but we're also explaining it to you and saying, these are the reasons why this model is operating this way. It's called feature importance. These are reasons why this model won't work. And that allows us to have a, true partnership with each institution as well. Jory, you want to add any color there?
Yeah, I would say, the engagement with end-to-end on the LightLeap fraud detection has been a combination. On the technical side, there are some pieces that, the IT folks want to understand, so they can support the deployment. But really, I think, and I love this question because, our financial aid, our admissions and records folks, the people who are on the front lines of trying to defend, it's application fraud, it's registration fraud, it's financial aid fraud. They're used to looking for certain patterns. And I think the light bulbs that have gone off in the interactions, with my teams and with end-to-end has really been about thinking differently about the types of methods that folks may use to try to, perpetuate fraud, and having them have a better understanding of the capabilities of the LightLeap model to be able to make connections between data elements that they wouldn't see. So it's kind of this bringing together of the expertise on the functional side, folks who really know financial aid, they really know admissions and registration, but then also I think elevating the game by bringing the AI component into it. So I think that awareness is really critical because everyone says, you want a turnkey solution, but really at the end of the day, folks need to understand how this solution works and how they can use it most effectively.
Thank you for that, Jory. Next question. We have two more questions from an attendee, and it's a two-parter. So part one is, are there plans to focus on bringing this to Canadian higher education industry as well?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great question. So number one, we are very much familiar with Canadian schools. In fact, We have several institutions that we are currently partnering with on Canada side. I had chat to this, our SVP of operations, who is working with several TouchNet schools, where we have several partnerships with Canada, with ID card integration, student information system, both on Banner, PeopleSoft, and others. And we are very familiar with the SSN versus SIN number, and also some of the nuances around the zip codes and others. I think we are very much, we are actively reaching out to our Canadian partners through directly and also through our partners like TouchNet and others. But we're very, very well aware of the Banner, or at least the customizations or bolt-ons that Ellucian has provided for Canadian schools, and we would love to work with Canadian schools for sure.
Awesome.
And
then
what's
they
the
have
second part of the question, Rohan?
Well, they have a follow-up to that and then the second part. So the follow-up to the first question that you just answered, Kieran, is, are we envisioning to standardize the model for North American higher education institutions, US plus Canada, as a part of a centralized place to detect and share information on frauds?
So, I mean, that's really kind of where we're going. Like, in a lot of ways, I think LightleapAI as a system is at the heart of it is going to be a higher education LLM, the way we are kind of building it, dreaming and scaling it up. So our goal is but we are not building it like where we're storing the data, but we're going to store the metadata in that LLM, which might include things like blacklisted phone numbers, blacklisted IP addresses, and the common logic. So one of the experiment we're hoping to accomplish with the California Community College system is that we can have a common body of common threats, common identifiers that are causing it, where the model itself is fairly stable between institution 1 and institution 2. But as we expand it to other bodies, for example, I had several meetings in schools in New Mexico earlier this week, and there's been similar discussion about having a consortia approach to this. But again, we kind of see this as a multi-pronged approach. One is each institution we're calling it as a nano learning model, where each institution's data itself is self-contained within their AI infrastructure, and then expand that into a macro or large learning model that includes different pieces. But just to be clear, we're not storing the data. We're only storing the metadata, so that it allows us to identify common threats and common pathways that allow us to make this determination. So that's the idea here.
Awesome.
But
And
that's
then
an excellent question.
The last question before I jump into the demo is, how are the metrics looking like they're in financial aid outreach to students versus actual fraud?
So we're still in very early stages with really trying to understand what really truly fraud is. So some of them are very obvious fraud. For example, when John and Rohan talked about a fraud cluster, we identified this cluster in one of our partner institutions where 15 IP addresses were the source of 150 applications, and these 150 applications had 3 different unique IP phone numbers, and these 3 unique phone numbers are used by 4 different addresses, and goes on and on. So when we built that cluster, it became a 1,584 record cluster. So where we're going with that is, some of them were, out of this 1,584, only 500 of them actually registered. And then out of this 500, only 300 applied for financial aid. So it is entirely possible that in the other 1,200 or 1,100 or 1,000 cases, they were trying to, in a robber's lingo, casing the joint, if you will. They're trying to apply. They're trying to see if they can get to point A. They're trying to register for one course. They're trying to register for 2 courses. So they're kind of trying to do different things, and eventually say, okay, this is worthy enough for me to actually apply for financial aid, because FAFSA is a huge process. You have to fill in like 300 pieces of information to submit a FAFSA application, and it's a more work than just registering for a course or applying for a course, applying for a college. So there is a lot of potentially fraudulent applications that are not that do not have a true fraudulent activity, which what we mean by that is there's no registration or there's no financial aid. But that doesn't mean just because a fraudulent actor has not applied for financial aid doesn't make him not fraud. It's just that he, she, or they are trying to, test out the waters and figure out where the deficiencies are.
Awesome.
So these are all excellent questions. I truly appreciate it. And again, please do feel to drop us a note. I think we'll be happy to kind of reach out to you and do a in-depth demo as well. So in this example, in the next 20 minutes, Rohan will do a little bit of a demo. But before we do that, I kind of put a poll together on what you see as the AI capabilities for your institution. So, you all have answered it, and it looks like, some institutions, one of them said, make websites like ChatGPT and help students with registration, and obviously, help resolve fraud with the power of AI ML, probably because that's the theme of this webinar. What if we told you that we can do all of them using LightleapAI? And that's what I'm hoping that you'll understand in the next 10 minutes or 15 minutes of the presentation. So Rohan, I know there's a lot to show on LightleapAI, but if you want to kind of show a quick sneak peek on the product and how this product has, maybe you can start with the standard demo on, maybe because we said the ChatGPT powered websites and registration, maybe just give them a sneak peek and then get into the fraud dashboard also.
Sure. I'll first go over students and how to register just to show the use of the UI, and then we'll go into the fraud and see how LightleapAI can detect fraud.
You can show the ChatGPT feature also. I think that'll be good for them to see like how a prospective student, because in a lot of ways, every institution wants to give a easy chatbot experience to their students. So this will be good for everybody to see.
So since I'm a natural Bulldog fan, I want to know where the UGA is located. So you see LightleapAI immediately comes back and says the University of Georgia UGA is located in Athens, Georgia. I'll say what program, oh, sorry, my typing. So then I ask what programs are offered here. And because LightleapAI knows I'm talking about UGA, I won't have to restate that, oh, it's UGA. It's at the context that, oh, this conversation is going to be about UGA. So moving forward, it's going to pull information about UGA. So as I asked, what are the programs offered here? It brings back a response saying we have a wide range of undergrad and graduate professional programs in various fields of study. I can ask something like, what is why do I always do that? Sorry, what is the culture like here? And then we should wait for a response, and then it brings us a response. The culture at UGA is often described as vibrant, diverse, and inclusive. UGA is known for its strong sense of community and school spirit, especially when it comes to supporting the university's athletic teams, such as the Georgia Bulldogs. Go Dogs! So that's just the way that Karen was saying how we can use the public-facing ChatGPT search box. So students won't have to go through tens of thousands of tabs open. They can be in one portal, one view, and get the information they need very fast. Karen, is there anything else you want me to show on this portion before I go to
No,
the
I think you
fraud?
can go into the student side, yeah. Just do the student registration because there's some interest in the student registration and learning as well, and then we'll get into the fraud.
Sure. So now I'm logged in as a student called John Doe, and as with any student, they want to know what courses that I can take. So LightleapAI pulling back all my information with the APIs that are attached to it. So like we said, it has access to my SIS, LMS data. So it shows all my completed courses, the name, the course code, the grade, the credit, and the courses that I need to take still. But anybody can just look up, oh, what course I need to take. That doesn't mean they're going to do well in them. But with LightleapAI, we can now have more confidence when picking courses because I want to know what classes do I have the best chance of getting an A in. And because everything is connected to my student data, LightleapAI is telling me these are the best classes I have a chance of getting the A in. So I can immediately go and register for any of them or register for all of them. And LightleapAI will do its magic. So you see, I'm now registered for stat. I couldn't register for calc because I need a prereq. And then business marketing 271 is an optional class that I can register for as well. So that gives me the confidence knowing, oh, I'm going to go into this class. I'm going to be good. If I do what I'm doing, I can get an A and improve my GPA. So it's just a nice little confidence boost that students can get, because as with any class, they're going to be nervous and not know if it's going to be easy, if it's going to be hard. So this eliminates that fear. More so, now that we are registered for classes, we can actually use Lightleap to help with our in-class work. So let's go and do Shakespeare Sonnet, for example. So here on the left side is all of our LMS data, and I can use the chatbot on the right side to interact with it. So for example, let's say explain Sonnet 18 in simple terms. And then it'll generate a response asking in simple terms. So I can now tailor it to my level of education, or even a beginner level of education, so I can understand it at my comfort level and get the information I need. We can even say, translate this to Spanish. So if there's an international students where English is not their primary language, then they can interact with it in their own language and be confident and not really miss out on anything. As you see, the whole sonnets are now translated into Spanish. So that's just a way we can use Lightleap when students don't have access to teachers or office hours, study groups, and they order late night studying, and they can use Lightleap to help them and get the information they need with their coursework as well.
Again, I know this is we have a full webinar online, and also, but we would love to kind of do a drill down as well. But yeah, go ahead, Rohan. I know
Awesome.
they're all here to see the fraud dashboard, so
Sure.
we'll just give them a sneak peek.
Sure. Okay. So I can go into my admissions counselor and click on admissions fraud. So now I can see, using Lightleap, will pull back all of the data, and I can see who my students are at risk for fraud. And we generate them. We see their student ID, their name, the type of fraud, and the fraud score. So now I have the ability to contact the students and see their overall dashboard and how I can help them. So we see a detailed description of the fraud description. So it's his age, SSN, home, and IP address with the fraud score. And then because Lightleap, we use the data turns into information, and we use that information to get a predictive analytics. And then from the predictions, predictions become actionable. That's what we're doing. We had Lightleap make the prediction, find the students that are at risk, and then now we can use this button to schedule an in-person Bursar meeting, so they can try to find a solution so that student won't be at risk of dropping out or failing, or even, God forbid, like his credit score getting more and more messed up.
Yeah, and again, the corrective actions can be many things. The corrective actions can be reaching out to student, asking them for additional piece of information, or ask them to submit notarized documents, or asking them to send a photo ID with their picture on it. So those are all the options. And sometimes some fraud can be high enough that we can automatically put a hold. Sometimes the fraud is just suspect, and we just need to tag it. And Rohan, you can go ahead and show the financial fraud side, and then we can open it for questions.
Sure. So then we can see the students that might default for this term. So we have, again, their student ID, their name, the level of their risk, their status, and their outstanding balance. So now the Bursar officer has the ability to go and contact these students and come to a solution. We can also go to fraud monitor as well and see payment issues. So then that way, these are students that are flagged where they're like, oh, you missed a payment, or this payment status doesn't look right. That way they can flag them and make sure that they're, not fraud, and make sure that they're real. So then that way those students can be good and continue the semester successfully. And overall, at the end, Lightleap, it just helps us make those decisions faster and isolate those solutions faster to see if, okay, this person is fraud at the end and this person is not. So that way we can separate the two and make sure everyone is getting the good education they deserve.
Great. So we'll open up another poll for you as we start wrapping up the meeting, and start letting you think of any questions you all have. So the last question is about job impact. Like, again, we all started the meeting with saying AI, we're all excited about AI. I want to hear from you on whether, your job, you feel like your job will be better because of AI. Will it be easier? Will it be more efficient? Will it be more productive? Or you think it's gonna, or you think it won't change, or, you're not sure. So I think we would like to hear, I would like to hear your thoughts. Feel free to, take a minute here to answer this poll. There's no wrong answers, of course. It is just a way for us to understand like how people are feeling, what they see as the, future of AI, obviously, like that we all say that we're excited, but how does it actually impact your job? Will it make it better? Would you think it will not change, or you're not sure? I think anything you can provide will allow us to gauge our interest here. So we have 10 more minutes on this meeting. I want to kind of be respectful of everybody's time, and I want to open the floor for questions and hear any questions or concerns you have, or any other thoughts about what are the other fraud your institution is trying to your institution is struggling with, that we should be aware of as we start wrapping up our meeting here.
I see one question coming in.
Sure.
This seems to be focused on individual institutions' data. I would love to explore more on how the sharing on information on fraud could be envisioned with multiple institutions, which might have very different data points on detecting fraud and flagging a fraud score. I have more of a
Yeah.
statement than a question, but
No, I agree. I think that's exactly why we are building LightLeap as an LLM, not a standalone isolated system. So what we have as part of you have the architecture slide here. If you
I
want
can
to
pull it up.
Yeah,
Yep.
if you can pull up the architecture slide, we can talk a little bit about how we're building. Each institution we consider it as a nano learning model. So each institution itself is a learning model, right? Your term course, your course catalog, your specific metadata, that is one of them. And then when we connect all of these nano learning models, it becomes a large learning model, and that's where the neural network comes in. So LightLeap as a system, if you open up the NLM slide, it's probably a couple of this backslide or something. There's a slide called neural. Yeah, that's the one. I think is an example of how we kind of see this as a LightLeap as that new private neural network. So each institution will be an NLM, as a couple, and then NLMs are plugged into each other as consortia. Like right now we're working with the California Community College System, Ivy Tech Community College System, Project Kitty Hawk with the University of North Carolina System, and CUNY on integration things. But as we add more and more of these tenants together, then it becomes a full-on private neural network, and that neural network is what LightLeap is going to eventually become. So if you go to the next slide on the architecture, it gives them an overview on what that architecture looks like. So LightLeap itself, on the bottom right-hand corner, the analytics models, is one of the analytics models is this AI prediction model, but we have other analytics model that do course prediction or student progression prediction or course usage prediction, and all of those are going to be models that we're going to build and deploy, and LightLeap will be the central. LightLeap will be the interface point to be able to access these endpoints, but also on the right-hand side where you see Llama 2 ATB, which is going to be our AI infrastructure. We are hosting it and managing it on our own side. That way, it will allow us to build a higher education LLM, which will have a body of a knowledge that will allow us to be very much higher education focused when answering the questions, and that's the idea. So, but our goal is to have that full higher education LLM built out for private networks like California Community College systems or North Carolina systems, but also for the holistic system as well, so that student can ask questions about where they can apply for college or how they can move from one college to another. But again, that large learning model is really just a compilation of publicly available information, like the course catalogs, term codes, admissions information and stuff like that. It's not a PII. No PII will ever be stored in our LLM, because all the LLM is doing is storing the metadata about these objects. We have 6 more minutes left on the meeting. If you have any questions, feel free to drop in, and we'll be happy to drill down and answer any questions. Cool. Well, I don't want to keep you all for any longer than we planned on. This looks like there's one more question.
Oh.
All right, go ahead.
Any plans on including the educational
ministries into utilizing the
ministries?
model? So ministries, as in, I'm not sure what an educational ministry is. Educational ministries into utilizing the model as well. No, I think we can. I think maybe the question is about Department of Education, right? So I think that's probably what they're talking about. And yes, absolutely. I think we want it to be a tool that people can use across. Yeah, I think I got it. So it's basically like a department. I think the ministry is a typical term used in Europe and I think Middle East as well. But yes, so if we work at the administration level like that, so then it'll be a much more of a top-down approach, which will work in EMEA, like Europe, Middle East, and Asia territories, and we would love to take that opportunity to work with it. In US, we're kind of taking a little bit of a bottom-up strategy, working with universities, working with university consortia like California Community Colleges and Ivy Tech. But if there is an opportunity for us to work directly with the Department of Education at a country, we'll be happy to work with you on that. That'll be an incredible honor to work with, but we absolutely are not opposed to it. If anything, that actually makes it easier, because it allows us to have that central mandate to be able to connect all the systems and use that as a body of knowledge, whether it is running reports. So Rohan, if you want to show the Chancellor dashboard, it'll be nice for whoever asked the question to see it, because once you can connect information at that level, the level of information we can pull up is much more holistic and much more complete, and the value return on the investment for institutions and the government would be much higher.
Okay, so here we are on our Chancellor dashboard, so we can see just by a click of a button how the institution is performing overall. So then it generates a pie chart as an example. So we see this section is for the College of Engineering, this section is for the School of Sciences, School of Business, College of Medicine, and the College of Liberal Arts. So then it's breaking down and seeing all the metrics. I believe there's another
you can click on the text part of it, and you'll be able to drill down also on the
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
So then we want to go into deeper, and this, for example, Chancellor Mary Jones wants to know how the College of Liberal Arts is doing. It then generated a chart, so we see all the different departments or colleges, I should say, and then the numbers on the side. And hovering over them, we'll be able to get detailed descriptions of, or detailed variables on just how many people are enrolled in the college compared to that college.
Yeah, open the registration dashboard also, like the registrar dashboard, so that they can see the student view.
Yep. So then with the registrar dashboard, we can hone in on individual students, and we can, as for example, our undergrad college undergrad college professor, I guess you could say, wants to know how John Doe is doing. So then using predictive analytics and our models, and also taking in emotion, we'll see John Doe is doing well. Just like how you are going to a doctor, you don't want to know like all the nitpicky details. You just want to know, am I okay? Am I gonna live, or am I gonna die? So then we see that he's doing well. He's in the second year of BS, and he has a current GPA, but it also, carries some flags as well, saying, oh, he's a little behind on paying his fees and he didn't sign up for a meal plan. Now it gives us actionable prompts to help him out and solve those issues. So if I want to see an overall of his analytical dashboard, then we can go and we see everything being generated. We see that this is his college, Here we see every single semester or year, I should say, fall 2022, fall 2023, and his current GPA in that. Here it'll generate a list of, oh, how many outstanding classes he still needs to do, and then how many classes he did per year, per semester, and then his overall GPA per classes. As you can see, these are the course codes right here. But then when we go deeper down, we can see that, oh, he's doing not well in some areas. As we see, he's grade protection right now. He keeps the current track and doesn't do anything, is a D. Then Illuminate generates actionable prompts for him so he can go and seek the help he needs, or the registrar officer in this case can give more attention to the student, so that way that student can be successful as well. We see we have the ability to schedule an AI advice meeting so he can do better in his web development course.
Great. Well, I know that we are coming to the top of the hour here. First of all, thank you so much for all of you taking time on a Friday evening or afternoon, depending on which country zone you're in. We're truly grateful for all of you spending your time. My big thanks is to Jory for just deciding to be a good sport and kind of pitch in and give the feedback as well. And Peter, you as well for kind of jumping in. None of this was scripted, especially Jory's and Peter's comments were scripted. Feel free to drop a note for us. Rohan and John will reach out to you separately. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you all have a great weekend here. Thank you all.